So, have you heard the advice just add FAQs to your page? It is a common piece of advice that people give when explaining how to get visibility on LLMs. I hear it all the time. It is one of the main tactics that are always recommended. And that's not to say that it isn't a tactic that you want to consider, but chances are majority of you are probably doing it wrong. And I just wanted to give a few examples of how this advice usually ends up being given, where whether it's blog content, whether it's your landing pages, usually they're pretty misguided. So in the case of a landing page, I'm going to use this example here with Channel Manager, which is for the purpose of hospitality, vacation rentals, hotels. But for a specific feature like this, what is a channel manager? How can a channel manager save you time? How does a channel manager prevent double bookings? Sure. I mean, these might sound like good FAQs that the user might consider, but if you are doing this for the purpose of LLM visibility, chances are this is not going to help you in any way. Sure, it's making your page more comprehensive, but it's not actually serving the purpose that you're trying to achieve. Same thing for, let's use an example like Maximus. So if I come down to their FAQ section, it's always the most common issue that I come across, but what is visitor identification software? So, obviously, if the user is on your page, they probably don't need a summary of what it is. They're more so curious about what your product can do specifically. So, the most common culprit and the common default that people land on is that instead of talking about their product themselves, they end up talking about the product category, which is the worst advice that you could possibly take. So if a user is coming to your page, they're not learning about what your product can do specifically. They're learning about the product category itself, which isn't going to tell an LLM anything. But if we continue on with, let's look at if we look at other competitors to Maximus, which is website identification. If I come over to Factors, this is where we start to see what you should be doing with your FAQ questions. So how does Factors AI identify more accounts compared to other tools? Is Factors website GDPR compliant? How does Factors integrate with my existing tools? Can I integrate my website visitor data with my CRM? So these are actually the questions that a user probably has, but if an LLM is looking for products that match this specific, that can handle the specific feature or use case, these FAQs are going to be the questions that they specifically pull from, especially from their landing pages. So yeah, blog content with FAQs is great, but if you want to influence an LLM result when people are looking for products, this is when you want to have the right kind of FAQs on your product page. So if we look at another example, let's look at Dealfront, which is also website or visitor identification software. Same thing. Can Leadfeeder identify companies whose employees work remotely? How does Leadfeeder data kept accurate and up to date? Is Leadfeeder GDPR compliant? So this is all questions that we're directly answering about each version of the product to basically give users and LLMs an idea of what the product is capable of. So right now I'm on the web visitors page. If I go over to, let's go to Target, same thing. We're going to get a whole different set of FAQs that are specific to what this product can do. What can I do with the data in Target? How up to date is data in Target? But while I'm explaining this, this is how it looks when you look in ChatGPT. So one of the examples I gave it was, can you find me a website identification software that complies with Google and Google's data and privacy rules? So of course, it's going to put together a list. Of course, that's added the definition, but it's going to put together recommendations on what I need to know about each company and if they are compliant there. So as you can see, Factors, their landing page is actually being sourced for this specific search. So if I click on the source, come all the way down, we're then able to see that the Factors FAQ is directly influencing that answer. So with the user, when I'm using ChatGPT, I am not just saying, find me a website identification software. I'm going to be so much more specific, whether it's can find me a website identification software that can integrate to my CRM, that is GDPR compliant, can set up conversions. So if I am very specific about what I'm looking for in a category, these FAQs are going to make it much easier for an LLM to basically put together that response and include you in that response. And that's not to mention branded search or branded questions about factors as well too. So if I land on factors through my research, I might have a few questions that I want to ask to see if it matches my need. And again, that's where these FAQs come into play. Same thing for this example down here. Can you find me identification tools that are that can connect with CRMs like HubSpot? Again, we have another short list of what is possible through these tools. So all of them, they're either going to pull from HubSpot's integration page, or it's going to come from their landing pages directly. But either way, when you have these FAQ sections or FAQ questions, these are the results that are basically going to influence how LLMs are going to reference your product. So when you're thinking about them, don't just think about them in a way where you're talking about the broad category of the product, like what is a channel manager or what does a channel manager do. Think about the specific questions a user is going to have about your product and make sure you have those answered on your website. That is going to be the best place to be user-friendly, of course, but that's also going to carry over with that secondary LLM benefit, like I showed up here. So if you hear the advice, add FAQs to your website. Don't do what I was showing you over here. Focus on the questions that your users are actually asking you.